Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandra O'Connor, and I would like to welcome you to the Greensboro Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Please note that this meeting is being conducted in person and online. And if anyone participating online needs help with Zoom during the meeting, please email Luke Carter at lucas.carter, C-A-R-T-E-R, at greensboro-nc.gov. Members of the Commission are appointed by the City Council and serve without pay. The Commission reviews all original zoning and rezoning requests for the City of Greensboro. Each Commissioner normally visits each site prior to this meeting. The procedure used at all public hearings is as follows. Planning staff present background information and make a recommendation. The applicant will present a short summary on how he or she communicated with the neighborhood and why the request is reasonable. Other persons in favor of the request speak for a combined 10 minutes. Speakers opposed to the request share another 10 minutes. Those in favor of the request will share 5 minutes of rebuttal time. Those in opposition to the request will share 5 minutes of rebuttal time. Any commission member may ask questions once a presenter has completed their presentation. All commissioners are required to vote unless they have a conflict of interest. In an effort to run meetings more efficiently, the Planning and Zoning Commission may reorganize the meeting agenda. Cases in which no opposition has been expressed to the Planning Department and in which Commission members do not feel necessitate in-depth discussion will be moved to the top of the agenda. Staff will provide a shortened presentation for these expedited cases, and applicants will have up to 2 minutes to address the Commission if they desire to provide any additional information they want the Commission to know. Expedited cases will then follow the procedures outlined previously. All denied cases and all approved ordinances receiving 6 or more favorable votes will constitute final action unless an appeal is submitted in writing to the Planning Department and the appeal fee is paid within 10 days. All ordinances receiving a majority of favorable votes but less than 6 will be subject to a public hearing by the City Council. When the case is called that you are interested in, people wishing to speak online will need to use the raise hand function, and you will be called upon to speak in the order in which hands were raised. Please find the raise hand function under the reaction button. People wishing to speak in person will need to come to the podium. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and address for the record. Please also direct all comments and questions to the Zoning Commission. Participants in the Zoom meeting will be able to view the meeting and speak when they are called upon. This meeting is being recorded and televised on Greensboro Television Network. In addition, the telecast is being closed captioned for the hearing impaired. I'd like to take a minute and have the commissioners present introduce themselves, starting on my right.
Warshay Downing.
Mary Skeens. Erica Glass.
Paul G. Gilmore, Sr.
And I believe we have Andrew Egbert online with us for Zoom. Mr. Egbert.
Andrew Egbert.
Thank you. Mr. Engel has advised he may be a few minutes late, and we'll want to excuse the absence of Vice Chair Magid and Mr. Peterson. We wanted to hear a few things from our council as well, please.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor, and good evening, everyone. Much of the Planning and Zoning Commission's work this evening will relate to the consideration of rezoning applications. I'd like to remind everyone in attendance that when the Commission considers rezoning applications, its determinations are based on the land uses that are allowed under the zoning district put forth in the application, as well as any conditions that have been proposed by the applicant. Land use impacts on public infrastructure are relevant in rezoning matters, and it is important to know that the Commission is not here to determine all details of a development. This involves staff input and evaluation that goes beyond the scope of the Commission's work here. If a rezoning would generate a certain amount of traffic flow, the commissioners will have been provided with a traffic impact study, for example. Meanwhile, many site-specific development features, such as the management of stormwater, are evaluated through the Technical Review Committee rather than in this forum here. Lastly, concerns that are not related to land use are not germane to the to the Commission's consideration of these rezoning applications. For example, generalized concerns about crime rates, current or anticipated school capacity, and questions of who may own or live or use a subject property are not for the Commission's consideration. If there are questions about matters that are not addressed this evening, those may be directed to the Planning Department or to the Technical Review Committee as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. We've acknowledged the absences. Next, I need approval of the minutes from our April 15th meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes from the April meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmer.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Downing, for the second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Mr. Egbert, aye. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Before we proceed with the arrangement of our agenda, I want to make sure that there is no one present here or online that wants to speak in opposition to anything other than O'Farrell Street or McConnell Road. Is there anybody who wants to speak in opposition to any of those?
Chair O'Connor, I don't believe we actually have any speakers for O'Farrell at this point, but we can confirm that.
Oh, okay, we have someone
Okay,
here for,
we do have
and we had
somebody,
somebody online.
Okay.
Thank you. So there is no one here to speak in opposition to anything other than either O'Farrell or McConnell. Is that correct? In that case, we will expedite the other items on our agenda.
That is not correct.
Excuse me, what would you like to speak in opposition to?
I don't know if you all are allowing us as residents to speak against zoning at this point. I just wasn't sure. And we had someone else that popped up that said they opposed. So I didn't want you to move on without us understanding if this was our time to
We will hear the case.
communicate that we oppose or another time.
Okay.
Ms. Crump, this is Luke Carter. So the only thing that Ms. O'Connor has said so far is she is identifying the cases that do not have opposition to be expedited. We have you as scheduled to speak on the McConnell Road request, and all of those, we have more than one people signed up to speak for that, so that case will not be expedited, but the items that are expedited will be moved to the front of the agenda. So there will be time later for people who are there to speak in opposition to a request to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Is that clear? So we were just making certain that there was nobody here that we had.
Yes, it is. Thank you for your time.
Oh, sure. Thank you. And thanks for speaking up. So we will go then to our expedited cases first. And our public hearing will be on the Stanley Road case, first expedited hearing. The first item on our expedited agenda is item Z2405002, a rezoning request from R3 Residential Single Family 3 to R5 Residential Single Family 5 for the property identified as 2411 Stanley Road, generally described as east of Stanley Road and south of Huntmaster Trail, 0.58 acres. Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. This is the zoning map of the subject property, which shows that it's currently zoned R3. You can see that north, east, south, and west of the request are also zoned R3, and all contain either single-family dwellings or are undeveloped land. In recommending approval of this request, staff notes that the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates the site as urban general on the future built form map and residential on the future land use map. The proposed rezoning request supports both the comprehensive plan's Creating Great Places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices, and the filling in our framework goal to arrange our land uses to create a more vibrant and livable Greensboro. The proposed R5 zoning district permits similar uses to those that are existing on adjacent tracts, and the request is consistent with the residential zoning designations on surrounding properties. And with that, I can answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions from commissioners? We have none. Is the applicant present? Would you like to add anything in addition to what Mr. Carter said? You'd have up to 2 minutes. It's not necessary. If you want to speak, you can come forward. No? All right. Then without objection, we'll close the public hearing. And I will be looking for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion in regard to agenda item Z2405002, Stanley Road. The Greensboro Planning and Zoning Commission believes that its action to recommend approval of the rezoning request for the property at 2411 Stanley Road from R3 Residential Single Family 3 to R5 Residential Single Family 5 to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future bill form map and future land use map. The proposed R5 zoning district permits uses that fit the context of surrounding areas and limits negative impact on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmer. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or comment? If not, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Mr. Egbert,
Aye.
said aye. Thank you. Anybody opposed? That motion carries, and approval constitutes final action unless an appeal is submitted in writing to the Planning Department and the appeal fee is paid within 10 days. Anyone may file such an appeal. All such appeals will be subject to a public hearing at the Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 City Council meeting. All adjoining property owners will be notified of any such appeal. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Engel. The next item on our expedited agenda is item Z2405004, a rezoning request from CDCL, Conditional District Commercial Low, to R5, Residential Single Family 5, for the property identified as 3420 North Church Street, generally described as east of North Church Street and east of Berryman Street, 0.45 acres. Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. This is the subject property that you see here on North Church Street. The property is identified as 3420 North Church Street and is crosshatched on the zoning map in front of you. You can tell that north of the property is zone CL for commercial low. Even though it's zoned commercial low, the land uses to the north are residential and undeveloped. East and south and southwest of the property are zoned R5, containing single-family dwellings, and west of the property is conditional district RM26 with multifamily dwellings. In recommending approval of the request, staff notes that the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates this site as urban general on the future built form map and residential on the future land use map. The proposed rezoning request supports both the Comprehensive Plan's Creating Great Places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices, and the filling in our framework goal to arrange our land uses to create a more vibrant and livable Greensboro. The proposed R5 zoning district permits similar uses to those that are on adjacent tracts, and the request is consistent with the residential zoning designations surrounding the subject property. And with that, I can answer any questions that you have.
Do we have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
If the applicant's present, it's not necessary, but you have an additional 2 minutes if you'd like to add to anything Mr. Carter presented.
No, he doesn't want to.
Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. If there are no questions or comments from commissioners, we'll entertain a motion.
Comment is, this is a downzoning and it makes it consistent with what's around it, so I don't see an issue with it at all. On item Z-24-05-004, the Greensboro Planning and Zoning Commission believes that its action to recommend approval of the rezoning request for the property at 3420 North Church Street from CDCL to R5 to be consistent with the adopted Greensboro 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed R5 zoning district permits uses that fit the context of surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and the surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Skeens and Mr. Engel. Any other comments? If not, we'll take a vote on that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion carries and constitutes final action unless an appeal is submitted in writing to the Planning Department and the appeal fee is paid within 10 days. Anyone may file such an appeal. All such appeals will be subject to a public hearing at the Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 City Council meeting. All adjoining property owners will be notified of any such appeal. The next item on our expedited agenda is Z-24-05-005, a rezoning request from R3 Residential Single Family 3 to CDLI Conditional District Light Industrial for the property identified as 3302 Sandy Ridge Road, generally described as east of Sandy Ridge Road and north of Triad Drive, 1.38 acres. Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. This is the zoning map for the subject property that is shown in the crosshatched, and this is 3302 Sandy Ridge Road. You can see that north, east, south, and west of the request are all zoned R3 with single-family dwellings on each of the properties. But you can also see that farther outside of the single-family node that you see there is straight light industrial zoning. And all of them are either undeveloped or have uses that are allowed in the light industrial zoning district on them. This is the zoning condition that was proposed by the applicant. And in recommending approval of this request, staff notes that the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates these properties as urban general within a district scale activity center on the future built form map. This property is located within the Western Area Plan study area, and that plan designates this property as commercial mixed use on that future land use map. While this request, one thing to note about the Western Area Plan is that the recommendations of the plan haven't really panned out on the ground. So with that, the recommendations of that plan, we feel that this request is in more keeping with the uses that are existing on adjacent tracts and with the land use patterns that have taken place in that surrounding area, as opposed to what is recommended by the Western Area Plan. So that is one area that staff is recommending approval of the request because the land uses that are proposed are more in keeping with the land uses the land use trends that we see in that surrounding area. Any questions on that real quick?
Will that still allow us to take final action tonight, or will this trigger something else?
It does not trigger an amendment to the plan.
Okay.
All right. With that said, The proposed rezoning request supports the comprehensive plan's prioritizing sustainability goal to build economic resilience and expanding the local economy's ability to withstand and adjust to disruptions and changes at the regional, national, and global scales. The request also supports the comprehensive plan's growing economic competitiveness strategy to increase and preserve the inventory of developable sites compatible with corporate and industrial uses. The proposed CDLI zoning district, as conditioned, also allows uses that are compatible with existing residential and industrial uses located in the surrounding area. Care should be taken with respect to building orientation, building materials, height, and visual buffers to ensure an appropriate transition to the lower density residential uses on adjacent properties. With that, I can answer any questions that you have.
Any other questions, Mr. Carter? All right. Would the applicant like to make any additional comments? Seeing none, then we will close the public hearing. We'll be looking for a motion, please.
All right. In regard to agenda item Z2405005 at 3302 Sandy Ridge Road, the Greensboro Planning and Zoning Commission believes that its action to recommend approval of the rezoning request for the property at 3302 Sandy Ridge Road from R3 Residential Single Family 3 to CDLI Conditional District Light Industrial to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed CDLI zoning district as condition permits uses that fits the context of surrounding areas and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and its approval is in the public interest.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Downing and Mr. Gilmer. Any additional comments? If not, we'll take a vote on that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Egbert?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? This constitutes final action unless an appeal is submitted in writing to the Planning Department and the appeal fee is paid within 10 days. Anyone may file such an appeal. All such appeals will be subject to a public hearing at the Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 City Council meeting. All adjoining property owners will be notified of any such appeal. The next item on our expedited agenda is 3021 Pacific Avenue, item Z2405006, a rezoning request from LI Light Industrial to HI Heavy Industrial for the property identified as 3021 Pacific Avenue, generally described as southeast of Pacific Avenue and east of Bluebell Road, 0.49 acres. Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. 3021 Pacific Avenue is identified as the crosshatch property on this zoning map. You'll notice that north, south, and west of the request are all zoned HI, and east of the request is light industrial with industrial uses surrounding the property. There were no conditions with this request, so in recommending approval, staff notes that the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates this site as planned industrial on the future built form map and industrial on the future land use map. The proposed rezoning request supports both the comprehensive plans filling in our framework big idea to arrange our land uses for where we live, work, attend school, shop, and enjoy our free time to create a more vibrant and livable Greensboro. And it is also supported by the growing economic competitiveness big idea to build a prosperous, resilient economy that creates equitable opportunities to succeed. The proposed HI zoning district allows uses that are compatible with the existing workforce and manufacturing uses adjacent to the subject property, and the request also supports the employment-oriented character of the area. With that, I can answer any questions that you have.
Do we have any questions on the change in use? I think there was one inquiry about the use of chemicals, and if chemicals were used in the space, would that require a special permit?
Yeah, so if you have chemical storage or manufacturing that involves high hazard types of things, those would require a special use permit on top of the HI zoning.
Thank you. Any other questions? Would the applicant like to make any additional comments?
This is Clayton Crone here, and I'm with Mr. Hodgkin, and we don't have any comments at this point.
All right, thank you. If there are no further comments, then we will close the public hearing, and we will entertain a motion, please.
I can do that. In regards to agenda item Z-24-05-006, the Greensboro Planning and Zoning Commission believes that its action to recommend approval of the rezoning request for the property 3021 Pacific Avenue from LI Light Industrial to HI Heavy Industrial to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable in the public interest for the following reasons. 1, the request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. 2, the proposed HI zoning district permits uses that fit the context of the surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. 3, the request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area, will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Second.
Thank
Mary
you.
Skeens.
Thank you, Mr. Engel and Ms. Skeens, for our motion and our second. If there are no further comments, we can take a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Egbert?
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? That's final approval and constitutes final action unless an appeal is submitted in writing to the Planning Department, and the appeal fee is paid within 10 days. Anyone may file such an appeal. All such appeals will be subject to a public hearing at the Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 City Council meeting. All adjoining property owners will be notified of any such appeal. The next item on our accelerated agenda is Z-24-05-009, a rezoning request from CDRM-12, Conditional District Residential Multifamily 12, to CDO, Conditional District Office, for the property identified as 5228 Hilltop Road, generally described as north of Hilltop Road and west of Bridford Parkway, 8.85 acres. Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. 5228 Hilltop Road is identified as the crosshatched property on the zoning map. The property is currently zoned CDRM-12. You can also see CDRM-12 to the north and the east. To the south is R3, and to the west is CDRM-18. You'll see multifamily dwellings to the north, east, and west, and single-family dwellings to the south. This is the condition that was proposed by the applicant. And in recommending approval of the request, staff notes that the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates these properties, or this property, as urban general on the future built form map and residential on the future land use map. The proposed rezoning request supports the comprehensive plan's prioritizing sustainability big idea to have a strong leadership role in environmental stewardship, social equity, and a resilient economy. The request also supports the comprehensive plan's becoming car optional strategy to encourage new development that is compatible with the intended use of the adjacent roadway. The proposed conditional district office zoning district as condition would permit uses that are compatible with the existing uses on adjacent tracts. Also, the change in zoning for this property is appropriate given the location at the intersection of two thoroughfares. With that, I can answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Engel?
So I'll go ahead and ask it. Is this, I mean, because you could build RM-12 in office. Is there a change of use here that they're going to do, or do we know?
The applicant is requesting a change of use, and multifamily would not be, even though multifamily is one of the uses that you should be considering.
That's right.
Because it would be permitted under the condition that was proposed.
And that was what was so funky about it, was how it was written.
But this opens general office uses to that list of permitted uses as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Would the applicant like to make any additional comments?
I would not like to add anything to that, no.
Okay, thank
I would
you.
be happy
you
to add.
identify yourself, please?
Yes, Alex Hale, 1007 Battleground Avenue, Suite 300, Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay, thank you for letting us know you have no additional comments. And hearing that, then we will close the public hearing. Any further questions or comments from commissioners? If not, we will entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I make the motion. Item Z-24-05-009. The Greensboro Planning and Zoning Commission believes that its action to recommend approval of the original zoning request for the properties at 5228 Hilltop Road from CD RM12 Conditional District Residential Multifamily 12 to conditional CDO Conditional District Office to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2014 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the actions taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reason. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan, future built form map, and future land map. The proposal CD zoning district as conditional permits that fits the content of the surrounding area and limit negative impact on the adjacent property. The request is consistent due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owners and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmer and Mr. Engel. Any further comments? If not, we'll take a vote on the motion, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Egbert?
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? This constitutes final action unless an appeal is submitted in writing to the Planning Department and the appeal fee is paid within 10 days. Anyone may file such an appeal. All such appeals will be subject to a public hearing at the Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 City Council meeting. All adjoining property owners will be notified of any such appeal. That concludes our accelerated agenda. We'll now revert to our routine agenda. And as I mentioned at the beginning, comments, we have 2 items yet to consider for zoning. Those items will each receive 10 minutes for those in favor, 10 minutes for those in opposition, a shared 5 minutes for rebuttal for those in favor, and a shared 5 minutes for those in opposition. And the first item there will be item Z-24-05-007 and PLP 2410, an annexation and original zoning request from County RS30 Residential Single Family to City R5 Residential Single Family 5 for the property identified as a portion of 431 O'Farrell Street, generally described as east of O'Farrell Street and south of Naco Road, 9.15 acres. Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. The first thing that I want to point out is the subject property is a portion of 431 O'Farrell Street. So this portion of the property is already inside of the city limits and is already zoned R5. And the applicant is requesting for the remainder of the property that is outside of the city limits to also be zoned R5. The subject property, again, is shown here on the crosshatched, as crosshatched on the zoning map, and it is approximately 9.15 acres. This is an annexation and original zoning request from County RS30 to City R5. North of the request is zoned R5. East and south of the request are zoned County RS30. And west of the request is zoned City R5 and Conditional District Light Industrial. This is the aerial map of the subject property, which shows the property is currently undeveloped. North of the request contains single-family dwellings and undeveloped land. East and south of the request contains undeveloped land and some agricultural activities. And west of the request contains single-family dwellings and the Guilford County Schools maintenance yard, which is an outdoor storage use. This is an image of the subject property as seen from O'Farrell Street, and this is, again, the portion of the property that is currently inside of the city limits, back behind the pond that you can see, barely see it in this picture. That's the property that's in the county currently and is what is being decided or recommended tonight. This image shows a single-family dwelling that is located north of the request, zoned City R5. This image shows undeveloped land located east of the request on Ward Road, zoned County RS30. This is also undeveloped land located east of the request, zoned County RS30. And this is a portion of property that's used for agricultural purposes located south of the request, also on Ward Road, zoned County RS30. This is an image of a single-family dwelling located south and west of the request on O'Farrell Street, zoned City R5. And this image shows the outdoor storage yard that is located west of the request on NACO Road, zoned City LI and City CD LI. This image is facing north on O'Farrell Street. The subject property is on the right. And this is facing south on O'Farrell Street. The subject property is on the left. In recommending approval of the request, staff notes that the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates this site as planned industrial on the future built form map and industrial on the future land use map. In this case, significant environmental constraints limit options for future industrial development on this property and therefore would open it up to other types of development such as residential. The proposed original zoning request supports both the comprehensive plan's Creating Great Places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices, and the Building Community Connection strategy to work to ensure the quality, quantity, and diversity of housing choices across and between neighborhoods. The proposed R5 zoning district would allow uses that are compatible with those that are existing on adjacent tracts, and the uses permitted in the proposed zoning district also support the employment opportunities in nearby industrial locations and are appropriate at this location given the existing and planned road network. And with that, I can answer any questions that you have.
Do we have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
If the applicant would like to speak, I think the applicant may be online. We have a total of 10 minutes available for the applicant and anyone who wants to speak in support of the application. Okay. Mr. Sykes? All right, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in support of the application? If not, then we have a shared 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition. I have one person registered online and one in chambers. If you'd come to the podium and give your name and address.
How you doing? Richard Collins, 425 O'Farrell Street.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of questions about the pond and on the property. Are they gonna do they have plans to drain the pond in any way? Because that's my property, and I own a piece of the pond in the back, and there's beavers in there. I got a fox in the backyard. You know, obviously deer, but you know, environment. Key word you said there, because you know, that's an environmentalist heaven back there. So what's the plan?
Thank you. We're not able to answer your questions for you. We were hopeful that the applicant would contact those surrounding and give them an opportunity to ask questions, but we'll make note of those, and perhaps during rebuttal time the applicant may have some comment for you. Is there
Okay.
anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, and I was just curious, as you saw in those spectacular pictures of my property, you could see on the road there that you couldn't even get a mail truck down that road, and it's one way in and one way out, and a cul-de-sac down at the end. Did I say that wrong? So it's kind of crowded around there. I don't know if he's going to have another entry or exit road. I don't know, but I definitely oppose the zoning as of now, because I just don't think it's a productive move. And if you look at the area in the back, you know, obviously it's beautiful forest, big tall trees, mature, established trees, and you know, they're gonna have to tear all that down. Now it's his property, so he can do whatever he wants, but it's already a very populated area for such a small road. So if there is another entry or exit area that he plans on, you know, developing or creating, you know, more power to him. But I'm concerned about that pond area too, because since I own half of it, is he going to drain it? You know, I know you can't answer that question, but that's one of my concerns. And of course, nobody wants to kill a beaver, right? You got little beavers around, little babies, and you can see the dam they built. And there's a couple of beautiful foxes that hang out back there, and you know, nobody wants to disturb them, right? And that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
We believe we have someone online, Lavisha Barnes.
Chair O'Connor, Ms. Barnes is not online.
No, thank you. So that individual is not. Anyone else wanting to speak in opposition to this application? If not, we do have 5 minutes of rebuttal time for both sides. Would the applicant like to now speak for up to 5 minutes? If you'd come to the podium and give your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name's Wiley A. Sykes. I live at 110 Elgin Place in Greensboro. My partner Chuck Jones and I, we are O'Farrell LLC, and we own that piece of property, and we do development work. We developed the subdivision that is south of that, and we've developed some other things that are to the north. But just to answer, I'm sorry, I did not catch your name, but just to set the story straight, we have no plans to drain the pond at this time. We have no plans for development for the back portion, the portion that is behind the pond at this point. But anything that is behind the pond will most likely have a street access out to Ward Road, or if NACO Road gets extended, like the state has planned and is on their books for extension, then it would possibly go out to that road. But we have the most number of lots that we could have on O'Farrell Street at 431 O'Farrell is 3. So it would not add a great deal of traffic onto O'Farrell Street. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Ms. Gaines?
All right, we've got 9.15 acres, and you're saying did I hear you say that most houses you could get on that 9 acres is 3?
On the front portion, the portion that's currently in the city, which is on the west side of the lake. But so I'm saying that the access to the west side of the lake will be from O'Farrell Street, and there's only 3 lots we can get there.
Okay.
But on the back side, it should be part of a larger subdivision with other vacant land out there and streeted out to Ward Road, most likely.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Ms. Gaines?
To staff, concern about draining the pond. That's an environmental issue that is not even possible at this time, is it?
Well, I mean, it's part of the discussion that would be with site plan review, and I guess if there was any impact, either in terms of the downstream that runs along the property, or there's some other consideration on that. I mean, I couldn't speak to that at this point in time, as far, especially since the pond crosses multiple properties that are not part of the subject tonight on there. That question that came up, I was looking at the map to make sure it does cross multiple properties. So I don't That would be something that has to be dealt with through technical review. I couldn't speak to that right now.
But all adjoining properties would have a say-so in what happens to that lake. Because typically, as Mr. Collins spoke, typically property
Yeah, the
ownership
riparian rights
extends.
potentially would come into that conversation, yes.
Okay, so to try to reassure Mr. Collins, they're not going to drain that lake unless he says it's okay. Or the majority
I think there'll
of the
have to be
property
some
owners.
conversations. I can't speak
Okay.
specifically to that.
Yeah, I don't know that that's a question we'd necessarily want to answer in this forum.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Sachs, was there any outreach to the neighbors?
I'm sorry?
Was there any outreach to the neighboring property owners?
My partner did the outreach, and we sent out letters, and he spoke with many of them directly because he, frankly, has been in that area for 25 years and had homes in there and knows almost all of the O'Farrell family and everybody over there. So he spoke with them at length. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have 3 minutes and 54 seconds remaining if anyone else would like to speak in support of the application. Seeing none, we have a total of 5 minutes available for rebuttal time for anyone who wants to speak in opposition. Any additional comments? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We will look for 2 motions. First, one for annexation and then second for zoning.
I would move that we annex the property.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Engel and Ms. Skeens. We have a motion for annexation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Egbert?
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? All right, then we need a motion on the zoning, please.
I'll go ahead and do that. In regards to agenda item Z-24-05-007, the Greensboro Planning and Zoning Commission believes its action to recommend approval of the original zoning request for the property at a portion of 431 O'Farrell Street from County RS 30 Residential Single Family to City R5 Residential Single Family 5 to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan and considers the action taken to be reasonable in the public interest for the following reasons. 1, the request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. 2, the proposed City R5 zoning district permits uses that fit the context of the surrounding area and limits negative impacts on adjacent properties. 3, the request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Commissioner Gilmer seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Engel and Mr. Gilmer. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Egbert?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? This constitutes a favorable recommendation that is subject to a public hearing at the Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 City Council meeting. The next item on our agenda is item PLP 2411 and Z250208, an annexation and original zoning request from County AG Agricultural and County HB Highway Business to City CDLI Conditional District Light Industrial for the properties identified as 3530 and 3534 McConnell Road, generally described as south of McConnell Road and west of Stanfield Road, 19.945 acres. Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. This is the map of the subject property, which contains approximately 19.945 acres. This is an annexation and an original zoning request from County Ag and County HB to City CDLI. North of the request is zoned County RM12MH, which is residential multifamily with the manufactured housing overlay district. There's also County Agricultural north of the request. East of the request is zoned County RS40. South of the request is zoned R5 and City CDHI. And west of the request is zoned County Ag. This is the aerial map of the subject property, which is currently vacant. The majority of the property is vacant or undeveloped. There is a vacant commercial structure on one portion of the property, but it looks to be vacant. The properties to the north contain the manufactured home park and single-family dwellings. East of the request contains single-family dwellings and undeveloped land. South of the request contains I-40 and heavy equipment sales and service, which is across the highway. West of the request contains single-family dwellings. This is an image of the western portion of the subject property as seen from McConnell Road. And this is the eastern portion of the subject property as seen from McConnell Road, and you can see the vacant commercial building that's there. This image shows a single-family dwelling that is located north and west of the request on McConnell Road, zoned County Ag. This image shows a single-family dwelling that is located north of the request, zoned County Ag. And this is the manufactured home park that is located north of the request, zone County RM18MH. And this is a single-family dwelling that's not located within the manufactured home park, but a separate single-family dwelling located north of the request, zone County Ag. This is a single-family dwelling that is located east of the request, zoned County RS40. And this is a single-family dwelling located east of the request on Stanfield Road, zoned County RS40. This is undeveloped land east of the request on Stanfield Road, also zoned County RS40. This is an image of I-40, Business 85, located south of the request. And to the left-hand side of that property, you can see the heavy industrial property. This image shows a single-family dwelling located west of the request on McConnell Road, zone County Ag. And this view is facing east on McConnell Road. The subject property is on the right. And this is facing west on McConnell Road. The subject property is on the left. This is the condition that has been proposed by the applicant. And in recommending approval of the request, staff notes that the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates this property as planned industrial on the future built form map and industrial on the future land use map. The proposed original zoning request supports both the comprehensive plans, filling in our framework big idea to arrange our land uses for where we live, work, attend school, shop, and enjoy our free time to create a more vibrant and livable Greensboro. And it also is supported by the growing economic competitiveness big idea to build a prosperous, resilient economy that creates equitable opportunities to succeed. The proposed CDLI zoning district as condition would limit permitted uses to those that are similar to existing uses present in the surrounding area. And the change in the zoning for this property is appropriate given its proximity to the McConnell Road and I-40 interchange. And with that, I can answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, the applicant has up to 10 minutes. If you'd like to give your name and address, please. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board, the commission. Amanda Hodiern, 804 Green Valley Road, Suite 200 here in Greensboro. Appreciate the opportunity to address this request tonight. I'm here on behalf of the contract purchaser and would-be developer, which is Wiley Capital. I have with me this evening Mr. Ernie Reinstein from Wiley. He'll make a few comments just to introduce himself in a moment. But before we do that, we'll go through the case. Just a couple of summary points. As you heard from Mr. Carter, the total area here is just under 20 acres. They're on McConnell Road, as you saw, currently zoned in the county for AG and county highway business, which is sort of a leftover zoning designation from that empty building that you saw. We are proposing conditional district to light industrial, and we have a use condition which prohibits more of the harder of the light uses, if you will. So cemeteries, auditoriums, coliseums, stadiums, bus and rail terminals, shooting ranges, amusement or water parks, fairgrounds, hotels and motels, single-room occupancy residences, inert debris landfills, and animal shelters all would not be permissible here with this LI zoning as it's conditioned. Oh, that's okay. Thanks. All right, no problem. So to get a little context, put in context the photos that you saw from Mr. Carter, this is looking down on our subject property, and just want to get an idea of everything that's going on in the area. The red dot, of course, is our subject property, and you see most notably the interstate pattern here and how proximate we are. So just north of the interstate, it actually runs across the southern border of the subject property, and it's just a quick several hundred yards to the east down McConnell Road. So as we're going to look at in a moment, this is really critical to the designations that we have in our GSO 2040 plan and why that plan has come into fruition so successfully. We also have several other light industrial uses in the area that you can see here. South of the interstate, we have the distribution centers that include tenants like Wayfair, some other big users. What you don't see on the map, because this imagery is old, is the Penske site there right at the interchange, and the new industrial warehouse is just a little to the west of that as you come in off the interstate. But we'll look at that in a moment based on the zoning pattern. And then, of course, as you take McConnell on in, you come to Young's Mill, where we've got some more industrial zoning, and then we get into the city pretty quickly. Can I advance? There we go. Figured it out. Thank you. So this is our zoning pattern, which helps tell that story. Our subject property here in the middle of the screen, if you can see my cursor there. But looking at that zoning, some of which wasn't built yet in the previous image, you see all the purple on the screen, which is the LI land use pattern that we discussed. We do have some multifamily there in gold, and we have some county single family to the north of the site. And then, of course, the interstate that traverses the middle of the screen. So you really start to see this corridor developing from the zoning pattern that is exactly in keeping with our comprehensive plan. The future land use map that Mr. Carter mentioned, this is the land use designation map. We are designated as industrial. That's the purple. You see the site circled in red there. I know that's hard to see. So this is looking at that closer where you can see it from our data layer in GIS. The red star is our property. All of the purple or gray, as it sort of appears, is the industrial designation all around this property and the residential uses that I mentioned earlier. This is our built form map. It's the companion guiding principle document from our comprehensive plan. Again, you see the site circled in red. You see it as purple, and the red arrow here tells us that's planned industrial district. And I would submit to you that's really one of the strongest directives that our comprehensive plan gives us. All the blue that you see is urban general. That's the predominant designation that most of the city has, and that has a lot of variability in it as to how that comes to pass. But the planned industrial district is very directive. It tells us that these areas are to be employment centers. It tells us that it's absolutely critical that they add to employment or uses that support the need for employment. So we have a very clear corridor that has developed in keeping with this plan, in keeping with the infrastructure that has, I would submit, dictated this plan, and it's thriving and it's successfully growing exactly in keeping with our planning guidance. So we hope that you'll agree that this request is right in line with what we already have on the ground, with what has been planned for, and what is the objective of the city based on the guiding documents that we have at our disposal, and what is compatible and fits with the area as we see that land use pattern come to fruition. And again, this is just looking at a closer view of that built form designation from our GIS layer. Again, the purple being that planned industrial district. Excuse me. We have done a feasibility layout here. This has gone through TRC sketch plan review. At this point, this of course is really a feasibility guiding type of document just to see that the site can be viable. So this would just show really the furthest extent of developability of the site. At this point, that's as far as we've gone, but we also have done a traffic impact analysis that was submitted along with this request, also based on this most intense scope of development that this property could support. So that traffic study executive summary is in your packet, and you saw that did generate the need for a dedicated left turn lane. So as you can imagine, most of our trips are going to be going to the interstate, making a right-hand turn, and coming from the interstate, turning left into the site. So we are required to build a dedicated left turn lane to accommodate that. And that's in our directive from our traffic study. Other things you'll note here, because even though, as we saw in our plans, this is a designated industrial corridor and it's going that way, but also as you saw on the aerials, right now we have residential on either side of us. So what that means is that right now we have to utilize the most protective, transitional protective yard. So these are 45-foot type A planted protective yards, since right now this is industrial next to and adjacent to residential. So you'll note the dashed line that you see here does designate that at a minimum 45 feet all the way around the perimeter of the site. We're actually getting a fair amount more than that in several places. Also, of course, we'll have to do on-site stormwater management for any created impervious surface. That will go through full technical review committee review at the time of the site plan if the zoning is successful. But of course, we're making plans and making sure that all is feasible now, since we know that that'll have to be dealt with. We have done some neighborhood outreach. We mailed a letter to our neighbors from the city's 750-foot radius mailing list on April 26th. There was 83 recipients on that list. I also reached out to the HOA of the Creekside subdivision. That's the single-family subdivision to the north that you saw. I also made a call to the management office of the manufactured home development to the north, just to try and ensure that as many people as possible were invited to the meeting and had the information. We had 9 participants on the meeting, excluding myself and my client. We explained the request, showed the site plan, the feasibility sketch plan that we just showed you, and entertained questions. Told everybody, of course, about the meeting tonight. And we had some good discussion, I think some of which you'll hear tonight. We're continuing that dialogue with one of our neighbors, our neighbor to the west, which appears to the left on your screen. They have a nice single-family home there, so we're in talks with them about how to best manage that shared property line and ensure that we mitigate our impacts properly to their existing residents there. So we've been exploring the best way to do that with our civil design engineer and architect. We just got back some new data today. He's actually here tonight, so we'll have an opportunity to catch up again. But those conversations are ongoing. I expect this does have to go to council because it's annexation. So I expect we'll be adding a condition before it's all said and done. But because of the condition process, of course, we can't, once we add it, you can't take it back. So we want to make sure that we are exactly in line with those property owners' preferences before we put something down as a commitment, and we'll be utilizing the next month to do that. So I will leave it there. If Ernie wants to introduce himself, we've got a few seconds, and I'm here for any questions as we go on. Thank you.
Hi, Ernie Reinstein, 10 Parkway North, Deerfield, Illinois. I'm a development manager with Wiley Capital. We're first-time investors in Greensboro, and I just wanted to introduce myself in case anybody on the board or the planning department or our neighbors had any questions. I'm here, and we're looking forward to a long, fruitful relationship with Greensboro. Thank you.
Thank you. 27 seconds. All right, then we have a shared 10 minutes for anyone who would like to speak in opposition. I believe we have someone online. We'll take first the person in chambers. We'll take 2 of the people in chambers, and then we'll go online to anyone who wants to speak online for the shared 10 minutes.
Like 18-wheelers up and down the road?
The proposal was light industrial, but
What does that consist of? 18-wheelers?
They showed a warehouse.
A warehouse, industrial warehouse.
That's what was shown on the site.
Okay.
If you'd give your
I'm
name
sorry.
and address.
I had to get clarification from the young man there. My name is Joseph Carter. I live at 60 Waterland Drive. That's the 3500 block of McConnell Road. And what they're proposing is down the road that will have to come past those homes and go to the highway. Most the industrial buildings just been built there, not occupied yet, but they go straight to the highway. They don't have to come down McConnell Road, which is one lane and one lane, to go past all our homes with the diesel fuel and all that. You know, it's to us. I don't know what you propose, the 18-wheelers coming, ma'am?
I'm sorry, sir, you have to address us.
Okay, so what are they proposing, the 18-wheelers? Light industrial, what's that? What is light industrial? They got a bunch of industrial places up right off the highway. And it doesn't affect the homes or the properties along the way. Now, if she's speaking of an industrial plant, I'm quite sure it's like 18-wheelers, you know, if you got something to industrialize. And that would affect, I'm here, they're there, they got to come this way to get to the highway. And when they come back off the highway, they got to come back, you know, it's only one lane this way, one lane that way. It's not a 4-lane highway. It's only, you know, so I'm opposed to it. And if I had to have another meeting at the 18th or something, and she said she spoke to our HOA, well, they're in Charlotte. We can't even speak to them, you know. So, you know, you know, they're business people. They want to buy something. They got that. I understand that. But I understand, I've been here since 18 years. This McConnell Road was developed. I am the third person in this neighborhood in 18 years when it was developed, those homes. So I try to speak for all the people that's there that maybe got older, whatever, and you got to breathe all this industrial truck going up and down the road. You know, people might need an ambulance or a home care. You know, to us, it doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
For her, it makes sense. You know, it's business. I understand it. So, do I have to bring this on the 18th or something, you said? Another opposed?
Depending on the outcome of this still goes to City Council in June, and there will be a final hearing there. So this zoning commission will only make a recommendation at the end of our deliberation.
And you will send...
And it will go to City Council in June.
And you will send information out to the homes on O'Connell Road and those new homes. We will get notifications to come.
The same notification area that was already notified will know. Yes, sir.
This notification came to come to this meeting. Now, depends on what you guys do and whatever somebody else does. Am I going to be notified again?
Mr. Kirkland?
Yes. So, yes, if you got notification for the meeting this evening, you'll get a separate notification for the city council hearing with information about that hearing as well.
I will have.
Yes.
Thank you. We have 7 minutes and 19 minutes remaining. We have another speaker in chambers, and then we do have some people online. So if you'll be sharing that time. So if you'd give your name and address, please.
Mary Beth Feeney. I live at 3453 McConnell Road. That's a half a mile from the site, and I don't know what the rules are for notification, but we didn't receive any notification about the meeting that they had with the neighbors. I was able to stop and look at the sign at the site and find out about this, and also from a woman who lives at Creekside neighborhood. I'm concerned, of course, about traffic on McConnell Road. I've lived there for 30 years, and it's the same road as it was 30 years ago. We now have Penske Trucking, which did show up on their map. That's 15 acres. There's 2 distribution warehouse centers at the Clap Farms Road, 3 buildings totaling 300,000 square feet that aren't even in operation yet. There's another one across the street from that, 3618. It's another, I'm not sure, another 100,000 or square feet, or 300,000. That's not in operation yet. So the concern that we have is, how can we put another light industrial business in this small 20-acre spot on McConnell Road to add to the traffic with the 18-wheelers, as this gentleman talked about, going up and down? We don't even know the impact of those other buildings that are sitting there. Besides those trucks, we see CDL training vehicles from GTCC going from the GTCC campus down McConnell Road to the highway all day long. The farm trucks from A&T, the tractors, this is still a farming community. As much as we want to develop it as with this GS 2040 plan, Greensboro's plan, you still have to consider McConnell Road and what it's used for. There's lots of other developments going on outside of the city limits on McConnell Road. Brookhaven Mill, they're supposed to build hundreds of houses. I have all my old notes from being here in January of last year about another development, and it's just like we need to think about what we're doing and before we approve another company from somewhere else to come in and build this light industrial on McConnell Road. I just want to leave more time for other people.
Thank you. We have 4 minutes and 32 seconds remaining. We promised to go online. Who do we have to speak?
Chair O'Connor, Joanna Lowe wishes to speak.
All right. Ms. Lowe, if you'd give your name and address and turn your camera on. I see it's on.
Yes. Joanna Lowe, 1130, 1125, 1125Z, 1123Z, 1123, and 1119 Stanfield Road, to the east of this proposed warehouse bill. I sent in some documents prior, or video and maps prior. I'm opposed because I am sandwiched in between this proposed warehouse and the other warehouse on McConnell Road that was just built. And I have witnessed how Greensboro has not held the current warehouse to a standard. My land has been flooded. The herbicide has killed fish in my lake. I reached out to Cass Heaton with stormwater. He pawned me off to Chris Johnson, who came out and said they were not going to do anything about my flooded land. Their silt fence broke and muddied up my lake, and I have plenty of wildlife over there that are being affected. Not only that, I'm clearly being affected, and my land is being depleted, and Greensboro is not overseeing this project properly. And I am in fear that the same will happen with this new warehouse, which I am still downstream from that property. All of the properties that directly line up with the east side of that warehouse drain into my lake. And so my fear is that I'll be dealing with this yet again and losing more land, and the city of Greensboro doing absolutely nothing about it.
Thank you. Do we have another online?
Are you talking about the videos that I provided? I saw everyone else's documents went up.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up time for the other people that are online, but at some point I'd like for those to be shown.
So this has increased in the area of my pond.
We're trying to pull it up right now for you.
You can go to the next person, maybe come back to me if there's some time.
Okay, we have 2
Okay,
minutes
so
and 57 seconds remaining in this, and then we'll have some rebuttal time.
Increased in the area of my pond, reduced my runway here, or driveway area, because of runoff coming from this construction site. And there's a direct path from there
clock isn't running?
to here, and this
Clock
was
should be
just
running.
flooded last week, which was never a problem before construction of this warehouse.
Thank you. Do you want us to show other videos, or do you want us to go to another speaker? Whoops, you're muted.
I don't want you to show them if they're going to take away from the time.
Thank you.
This is Luke Carter with planning staff. I do want to reflect that all of the videos and all of the images were sent to the Planning and Zoning Commission members on Friday. So those, we might not have time to get through all of them in the meeting tonight, but they have been sent to the Planning and Zoning Commission
I was
members.
able to access them, so.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yes. Did you understand that, Ms. Lowe? We
Yes.
did all receive them. All right. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, then, do we have another online speaker?
Chair O'Connor, Gwendolyn
Yes.
Helton.
All right.
Yes, my name is Gwendolyn Crump Helton. I live at 1216 Waterland Drive. I did not notice the Creekside Community picture. When pictures were shown, we are directly across from McConnell Crossing. I would like to say that rezoning our neighborhood, putting in industrial buildings, is going to make our area less desirable, which can potentially affect our homes, the value of our homes. That's my first problem. We moved out in the county because we wanted to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. We selected this area because it was peaceful and welcoming. I would have never purchased a home on this side if I had any inclinations that you all would build an industrial building directly across from us. I can actually sit in my home and look out the door, and I'll be able to see this building. No longer will I see the trees. I will be looking directly at an industrial building. Not only that, I would like to add, as the gentleman said, we are on a small road. It's only 2 lanes, and those 2 lanes are small. I have witnessed 3 accidents right beside my home with cars. I can't imagine what's going to happen when all these trucks are going up and down the road. We have bicyclists on the road. I oppose. I don't want this to happen, and I hope that you all would vote against it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have 1 minute and 4 seconds remaining. We have a speaker at the podium. If you'd give your name and address, please.
Yes, ma'am. I'm J.C. Barnett. I'm at 3520 McConnell Road in Greensboro. And like I said, I'm not really against change in the area because I know change can, bring jobs and different things like that. But I have had conversation and dialogue with Mr. Ernie and Amanda on the phone, and they have talked with me, briefly about if they do put this warehouse there, that they will put a buffer there, a decent-sized buffer, and they're talking about a vegetated buffer because the property actually has trees that you can walk through. It's like, it's not a lot of overbrush or what, maybe I guess you would say. It's more like you can walk through the property and you can see through it pretty good. So that's why I had recommended to them, if they do this, that they would probably put up, a pretty decent-sized buffer. If you look at the map that the gentleman pulled up, I'm probably more affected by anybody with this property because I'm directly on the left side of it. If you're looking at McConnell Road, you couldn't even really see my house because I sit probably 550, 600 feet.
Thank you. We'll later have a total of 5 minutes of rebuttal time. And we do have 5 minutes of rebuttal time for the applicant or anyone who wants to speak in support of the application.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate the comments and the dialogue tonight. Certainly, my client and I recognize that this is change. That this is asking a corridor to grow and evolve into its highest, best use as designated by our comprehensive planning document. So I understand that that means change and transition are going to happen, and that's happening fast and furious. I think, as we've seen, I called it a very successful implementation of a comprehensive planning document. But we do recognize that that has an impact, and people in the area feel like they're seeing a lot of change quickly. And I think that that's why it's so important that we have to remember that this is the change that we set out to get. This is the change that the city provided for, not just with GSO 2040. It was on the previous comp plan. It was on the Timmins Industrial Preservation Site study, 10 years ago. So these are objectives and goals that the city has made for itself and that are now coming to fruition. And so we need to be careful to have these important conversations like the ones with Mr. Barnett and ensure that we're doing the highest buffers and we're creating those impact mitigations. We need to do the traffic studies, which do take into account all those other developments that aren't yet on the ground that the woman mentioned. If you look at your executive summary, there's a list including Brookhaven Mill, McConnell Pond, the industrial distribution sites that aren't yet fully tenanted. All of that is considered in the traffic impact study because GDOT and NCDOT is making sure that we get the full picture when we do these analyses, and that's why we have these planning documents, so that when these cases and requests come before you, you aren't asked to make decisions in a vacuum ad hoc based on what somebody's asking for, based on what the neighbors at that time say. It's based on higher guiding objectives that help us grow and evolve in the way that our city has decided it wants to go. And then we need to do it right. We need to do it carefully and responsibly, and that's why we have these meetings. That's why we want to do the right thing by our neighbors, but we also want to make sure that we do our part in the progress and the growth in the city. For example, one of the things we learned at TRC, to bring sewer to this site, it's just east of here at the interchange where Penske is, but we can't get it from there because of the way the gravity flow goes. So we have to bring it under the interstate from the south, up from Linder Equipment, which is going to be a significant investment, but then that provides that significant piece of infrastructure to this whole part of the basin. And so that's incremental positive development growth that keeps the city going in the direction it wants to go based on all these plans. Stormwater implementation, I certainly feel for Ms. Lowe. I heard her comments at our meeting, and I heard them again tonight. I understand she's having some issues. Unfortunately, those are not from our site, of course. And I do hope that the city can be responsive if there's an issue with its development, any violations going on north of there. But of course, we will follow the rules when we do this. We will have a fully engineered stormwater management plan, and if it's not functioning correctly or installed correctly, there's a violation process, an enforcement process for that we'll have to follow. Our site is actually down ridge from that site, so our stormwater is going to be running closer down to the interstate and west, as you saw where our pond was on our feasibility sketch. So I certainly hope that we won't be adding to her issues, and we certainly will be following all of the state and local regulations for that. I'm happy to answer any other direct questions if you heard anything that I haven't mentioned.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. It's 1 minute and 4 seconds remaining if anyone wants to speak in favor. And we have 5 minutes of rebuttal time then for those who want to speak in opposition. Would first want to hear from anyone who has not yet spoken.
Chair O'Connor, Darlene Wilson, and Dory Mond that are online and have not spoken yet.
All right, we have 2 people online who are waiting to speak. If you'd identify yourself with your name and address, and you'll be sharing up to 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Dory Munden. I live 5095 Mill Point Road, Greensboro, North Carolina. My family has been here for 30 some years, and we have watched it change. I am concerned about this possibility of this additional warehouse being built here. Quickly, we already have several warehouses that are unoccupied, and I understand the Greensboro 2040 plan, but this does not make our part of the community vibrant and livable. We don't have sidewalks. We don't even have a decent grocery store. We have one. If they would like to make our part of Greensboro vibrant and livable, we could use things like resources, not more warehouses, not trucks and pollution near our houses. You know, the people who live near the Publix warehouse that was built in the past couple of years, they have dropped property values. They have noise and light pollution all night long. And they can't even sell their houses now. Nobody wants to live next door to this. Now, I understand that there is I-40 access on one side of this. However, if you drive this road, it's actually kind of deeply in and off the freeway from McConnell Road. It's not like the other side where that all of those warehouses are accessible right off of I-40. This you actually do have to come in. And also for a lot of us who live out here, that is our main thoroughfare into town. It's a 2-lane highway, or not even a highway. It's a 2-lane road. And I drive that road at least twice a day because my daughter goes to school downtown. It's not a road that needs to see a lot of trucks. It really isn't. It's very small. And there are houses and communities literally right there that are going to suffer the repercussions of all of this pollution, from lights to trucking noise to trucks to traffic. It really is. I really would advise this person, especially this man who does not live in Greensboro, to maybe come and take a look and pick a new site that's a little closer to I-40 instead of coming in deeper. This is not, again, as I said, this is not going to make our community vibrant and livable. We're basically taking the hit for the rest of Greensboro to be vibrant and livable. And this side of town has done that for generations. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another 2 minutes and 31 seconds remaining. Did you say we had a second speaker online?
Yes, Chair O'Connor. Darlene Wilson wishes to speak.
Yes, I'm Darlene Wilson.
Can you turn your camera on, Ms. Wilson? There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, if you'd give your name and address, please.
I'm Darlene Wilson at 1206 Waterland Drive. I agree with what the lady before me said. The traffic is horrible. We have soft shoulders out here at McConnell Road. Constantly, left of center, the trucks all the time. I mean, there's not one morning I'm going to work or evening I'm coming home that I'm not meeting the trucks. And they said they're coming from 40, the exit up. They come down 40 from the residential area also. So I don't want people to think that they're just going to access those warehouses from the interstate exit, because they're not. And like they said, we have cyclists who are riding the bikes. It is so dangerous, I mean, for us to even do anything. The families can't even walk. It's such a beautiful country area, and we can't even enjoy it. Um, and the property value is going to suffer enough with the other ones down the road. And they were really trashy when they built those huge cinder block, I mean, almost size rocks in the road, mud in the road. It was just trashy. They treated us like we didn't mean anything. So I totally oppose this bill. We don't need any more out here. Give us something we can use, something our children can enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 1 minute and 6 seconds remaining. Do we have anyone else that has not yet had an opportunity to speak? Not,
Chair.
please.
I thought that was my neighbor. I'll wait for her to speak then. That clock's not running, is it? The clock is running? He said no, you said yes.
We have 1 minute and 6 seconds, and we're giving preference to someone who hasn't spoken yet. Yes. If you'd give your name and address,
yes,
please.
Yes, of course. My name is Alnisa Sherman. I'm a resident at 1214 Waterland Drive, which is as soon as you turn into the Creekside subdivision. So with the new proposal for this industrial site to be built, it literally will be like my neighbor stated also, you look out your window, no longer will you see the trees, no longer will you hear the birds chirping. This will be something that's not pretty, needs to say the least. Now, and if you do make a left out of the, area of the subdivision, there is other more industrial sites that were being built. And when they were being built, it was a big inconvenience. Even with traffic, you're driving out, you're rushing to get somewhere, you're stopped because construction's going on. It's like everyone is saying, it's literally a two-lane, one going one way and one going the opposite way. And then we have our children. You got school buses coming in and out. So I would just see it as a huge inconvenience, just to undervalue our area rather than developing our area and bringing it up. Like they said as well, we could use different things that are like a necessity to our area, supermarkets, shopping plazas, different things of that nature, versus turning our nice little, countryside into just a total industrial place that's all we're going to be filled with and for our views, and it's just not pretty. But thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much.
I'm done,
That concludes the time that we have allotted for this matter. And so we will close the public hearing. Just for reassurance for those, the videos that were sent or emails that were sent in advance were all distributed to commission members, and we've had the opportunity to review those as well as visit the site. Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners?
I have one. Do we have somebody here from GDOT tonight? Thank you.
We should have introduced her earlier. I apologize.
And if she did, I came in late, so I don't want to make the assumption that she didn't. But I say this not just for my purposes, but also for the folks that are here. We get a summary of what's known as a traffic impact analysis, a traffic study, and that is a sort of a, because for the most part we aren't considering a lot from the traffic side because there's nobody up here that's an engineer, at least not the last time I checked. The thing that I think that's important here, the document itself is probably several hundred pages. We get about 30 of it, which is basically the summary. I'm looking on here, the one thing that Attorney Hodiern had mentioned, it does take into account all of the other industrial properties on McConnell Road. It takes into account the build year, which it says is 2025, and 1 year in addition to that as far as the growth in traffic. What I am looking at here as I see this, and when they build this out, it's actually somewhat detailed in the fact that they have to tell them what uses they're going to be doing. So it would be different if they were doing something that was a fast food restaurant versus, an industrial complex. What I am seeing here, and this is public record, so you're welcome to look at it just as I am looking at it right now. It has truck trips broken out. And I'll notate to staff, what I'm seeing here is that per day, 2 truck trips. Is that what I'm seeing here? So whatever the use is, and they didn't tell me that they were making widgets or it was a laundry or whatever it was, whatever they're putting here is not going to have massive amounts of truck trips per day. Is that what I'm reading here in this traffic study?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. Because I heard a lot of concern about that, and it seems like I think in my time, this is year 6 for me on this commission, I'm out on McConnell Road every 6 months. There's always, and some of the things have passed and some of them haven't, but there's a lot of activity out there because of the interchange, and I know that that's tough, and that this is an area in transition because of that interchange. And I grew up in a town that was off of Interstate 74 in Indiana, and we also experienced massive amounts of growth because of a highway interchange. So I'm sympathetic to that. However, in this instance, this both in the 2 comprehensive plans that I've been here for, 2025 and 2040, this has always been an area that was slated in the comp plan as a growth tier and as an area that was going to be a business park or, what I would consider to be a light industrial area. I've supported one other residential use that was on this road, and it was actually denied later on as far as an annexation was concerned, and it's now a light industrial use. And I believe you represented the residential use as well, and it was going to be houses that were for working professionals. So I know that from what the city is planning to do with this is to be sort of a business park area. And so I'll be supporting it this evening because of those reasons.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Gilmer?
Yes, Madam Chairman. I also will be supporting it. I was involved with Greensboro Comprehensive Plan 2025, and we've always pushed for development in East Greensboro. I know it's a little painful, and I sympathize. But this is, like Mr. Ingle said, this has always been planned. We also, over a period of time, had community meetings with residents in different quarters dealing with the Comprehensive Plan 2025. We had people to show up, and some people didn't. So this is a continuation of what we've had in the past. And we do need economic development in East Greensboro. This is part of the process. And I will be supporting it also.
I would like to add as well. This is Warshay Downey. So I understand that this is the proximity to the interstate. This warrants industrial zoning. It makes sense. However, I understand the 2040 comprehensive plan promotes growth, but I do have the sentiments of the public interest at mind on this evening. Several outlined the flooding, the traffic, the noise, nature. I hear you, Mrs. Helton, Mrs. Wilson, Mrs. Anderson, Mrs. Lowe, several of you who are here today. And I also understand it's near Creekside Homes, a new property development. It's directly in front of many people's homes as well. I understand that even if this does move forward, the warehouses can be what they are now, and then a few years later it could be more traffic. Who knows? But I'm not here to debate that. I understand there will be property, protected yards and buffers will be in place, and so that is a good thing for the buffers to be in place. However, I believe it's in the public interest in this regard, and I'm listening to you all because you live there. And I commend the industries that are further down the street. That is a great location. But I hear that the neighbors are saying, not in front of my yard or not in my backyard. So I understand you. So from my perspective, I'm not going to vote in favor of this on this evening, but it's up to our collective audience on this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Downing. Anyone else? Mr.
Madam
Gilmer?
Chairman, if I may, from my experience, what happened is once a property in certain areas, let me say it like this. Sometimes the housing development jumps out in front of the actual development and the industrial that's going to happen. And so what happened is you have a neighborhood that's been built, you have property down the street that's zone industrial, whatever. They have not built out yet. So the companies have not came. So that's what we have here. And we're going to continue to have other areas like that in Greensboro. So I think it might be necessary for probably the developers to put something in their deeds or whatever, let people know that new development is coming, what the other area is rezoned as. Because it kind of puts us in a position sometime when we know how the community feels, but we have to move, we have to look at the land itself. So that's what we have to do. We have to deal with the emotions, and we have to deal with what the city attorney says we have to go by. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
Anyone else? I have to agree with Mr. Gilmer's sentiment. It's hard because the residential development certainly has its needs, but I think that this is moving in the direction that was set. And if I flipped it, if I said, what if they were trying to put residential in this, I think there could be a lot of objection for that, because it really, for where it is going, as was illustrated in the presentation, is an industrial use. And I don't know that you would be successful with anything else. So, and I'm sensitive to, and I respect that Mr. Downing is so careful to listen to the neighbors as they presented. We cannot be totally concerned with traffic issues because those are addressed outside of our area of expertise. We're here to talk about how the land is being used. And for me, I think the applicant has satisfied me that this is the best use. So I will be supporting this. If no one else has a comment, we can entertain a motion.
We need to annex first, correct?
Yes.
Correct. I'll make a motion that we annex the property.
Commissioner Gilmer, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Mr. Engel and Mr. Gilmer to annex the property. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Mr. Egbert?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Two. Two are opposed. All right, and then do we go forward with the motion for the zoning, please?
I'll make a motion for the zoning. In regards to agenda item Z-24-05-008, the Greensboro Planning and Zoning Commission believes that its action to recommend approval of the original zoning request for the properties at 3530 and 3534 McConnell Road from County Ag, Agricultural, and County HB, Highway Business to City LI, Conditional District Light Industrial to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable in the public interest for the following reasons. One, the request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. Two, the proposed CD-LI zoning district as conditioned permits uses that fit the context of the surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. Three, the request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area, will benefit the property owning surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Second, Commissioner Gilmer.
I have a motion and a second from Mr. Engel and Mr. Gilmer. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Mr. Egbert?
Aye.
Those opposed? Two in opposition. This matter will go to a public hearing before City Council on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. Those are all the zoning matters we have. We still have a street closure to consider. That is item PLP 2413, request to close a portion of Robin Hood Drive from Westmoreland Drive southward approximately 110 feet to its terminus. Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. This is the exhibit, the street closure exhibit, showing the portion of Robin Hood Drive that is requested to be closed. In order for the petition to be valid, the properties making up 51% of the road frontage had to sign the application. The landowner that signed the application owns both properties, so that makes 100% of the landowner. Of the properties owning that road frontage that signed it. Sorry, all that to say, it's a valid application. You'll notice that with this property, there are only two properties that are going to be, or with this street closure request, there are only two properties that are going to be affected by it, and neither are being deprived of their means of access. In order to recommend approval of this rezoning or of this street closure request, you do need to find that that the street, that closing the street to vehicular traffic is not contrary to the public interest, and that no property owner is deprived of their reasonable means of ingress and egress. The Technical Review Committee recommended approval of the proposed street closure with the following condition. In order for the street closure to be final, a plat must be recorded recombining the area within the right-of-way, and it would be identified or recombined with the property identified as 1411 Benjamin Parkway, which is the larger property to the southeast here. This is kind of it doesn't show zoning, but it's a map of the larger area, which kind of gives you an idea of the two properties that are affected by the rezone or by the street closure request. 1411 Benjamin Parkway is the larger property to the south and to the west, to the east. And this is the area map. And with that, I can answer any questions that you have.
Ms. Gaines?
Seems like I'm remembering in past undedicated cases, the parcel is split between the two, one parcel on each side.
That's correct.
And this does not seem to be what's happening here.
That's correct. So state law says that when right-of-way is being closed, that it goes along the center line of the road and then is added on to the adjoining property owners, unless, as part of the application to close the street, they disclose how it's going to be split if it's going to be split in any other configuration. And in this configuration, they are disclosing that it would all be combined in with the larger property. And that's what the exhibit that they showed before.
And is that with the consent of the person that would have ordinarily gotten half of it?
The church owns, there's a church on the
yeah.
larger property. They own both sides of it. Their parsonage is the residential property that you see there.
That explains it.
They don't want it added
That
on to that.
explains it, is
Yeah.
the church owns both parcels.
They do, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I had a similar question, because down the road, if it was divided and the house was sold separately, I wondered why part of this property, but if it's disclosed up front when they make the application, then that's the way it flows, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So, any other questions? Do we need to have speakers on this or a public hearing?
Do you want to speak?
Should inquire if there are anyone looking to speak. But
Is there anyone here to speak on this matter, or anyone online to speak on the matter?
No,
one
Chair
online.
O'Connor.
All right, then we will close the public hearing.
I would make a motion that we accept this and close the street. PLP 24-13. Is there any additional verbiage that you need?
Second.
Nope, just need a second.
Excellent.
And it is a recommendation to City Council.
So this constitutes a favorable recommendation and is subject to a public hearing at the Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 City Council meeting.
Did you guys vote? Did y'all take a
Aye.
actual
Sorry, I
vote?
thought we did.
Yeah, we didn't catch a second.
Excuse me, thank
I
you.
second.
You second? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Mr. Egbert?
Yay.
Aye, okay. Excuse me. That was a favorable recommendation. Thank you. Are there any other items from the Planning and Zoning Department?
We don't have anything else for the commission this evening.
Members have any?
Next month?
Well, I do want to add something.
It's still in flux, quite honestly. We got several applications that we're trying to figure out if we're going to be moving forward or not, but what are we at?
Can't even remember, honestly. I'm trying to.
Yeah, we were so focused on getting these taken care of because we had several that came off of this one because they weren't ready yet. So
Yeah, that's
don't
what
know
I'm a little
exactly.
concerned about. I noticed the numbering. So,
I believe it's less than 10, but beyond that,
Okay.
I couldn't tell you.
I think we're pulling it up as well. Hold on.
Yeah, Mr. Downing?
I want to add something small. Talking about McConnell Road, give the folks, if there's someone listening, a developer, give them a grocery store. That's it.
There are currently 10 items on the agenda, the draft agenda.
So we
Excuse
currently
me.
have 10 items on the agenda for June.
At the moment.
Currently.
you said less than. I'm holding you to it.
Okay.
Fix it.
That's what we're aiming for, is less than 10, right? Any items from commission members? Okay, then, do you have another one? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I don't think we need to vote. We're adjourned. Thank you.